Welcome, beloveds, to another episode of the Sankofa Sessions Podcast with yours truly, your host, Chief Apostle Veronica Yisrael. And today we're going to be dealing with an important topic that we all need to address. And this important issue is the post-traumatic syndrome, or Christian syndrome, should I say, the post-traumatic Christian syndrome, and healing the African soul in Africa and in the diaspora. So I want you to stay tuned, because today we are here to unpack the deep and lasting impacts of Christianity's imposition on the African spiritual identities, and more importantly, to explore the path towards healing, liberation, and reconnection with our divine heritage. So I invite you to take a deep breath with me. Exhale. This is a sacred and safe space. A sacred and safe space for all of us to unpack these traumatic issues that we are dealing with within our African soul. And so in this moment, we affirm our commitment to truth, healing, and spiritual growth. So let's begin our journey on today. Don't forget to click like, follow, leave a comment in the comment section, and subscribe. We give thanks for all of your support. And if you would like to support this platform, you can do so through Cash App, and the handle is capital VSY, lowercase ISRAEL 2021. We appreciate all of your donations and your gifts to help us continuing to produce these episodes and this podcast to further our mission in spreading this truth and universal laws and spiritual truth to help all people to connect with that inner knowing, that spirit within, and it flows within all of us. And so we thank you so much. The donation information is pinned in the caption or in the bio, and so you can go there for more details. Again, we thank you so very much for being here. So take out a pen, paper, and let's relax and unpack the post-traumatic Christian syndrome, healing the African soul in Africa and the diaspora. So welcome back to the Sankofa Sessions Podcast with your host, Chief Apostle Veronica Yisrael. And so let's begin our discussion in this episode today with a reflection. So I want you to imagine in your mind's eye the stories of our ancestors. Some lived freely, practicing their spiritual traditions in harmony with the earth and the cosmos, while others were forced into a new way of life, told by others that their beliefs were evil, and stripped of their dignity and of their connection to the divine within. These stories are not just his story. They are our records of the past, our truth. They live within us today. So what we are addressing here today in this episode is post-traumatic Christian syndrome. Post-traumatic Christian syndrome. It is a condition rooted in the spiritual, psychological, and emotional harm caused by colonization, slavery, and the forced imposition of Christianity. This is not about vilifying Christianity. I want to make that clear on the onset. This is not about vilifying Christianity or any faith tradition, but rather it's about understanding how it was weaponized against African people and how we can now heal and reclaim our spiritual power. So our discussion today will unfold in three key segments. One, we want to get into understanding the impacts of a PTCS, post-traumatic Christian syndrome. 2, we want to dig into unpacking the myths and reclaiming truth. And our third segment, we will deliberate and dig in and discuss is healing the African soul through African-centered spiritual wisdom, including the Bantu philosophy, Kemetic teachings, and the Yoruba spirituality. So by the end of this episode together, through our time together, I hope you feel empowered to reconnect with your ancestral wisdom and embrace the divine within you. So let's begin. To understand post-traumatic Christian syndrome, we have to begin to first look at its origin. Where does it come from? Anytime you want to tackle a subject, you have to go to the root, the origin. Where does it spring up from? When European colonizers came to the land that is now called Africa, their agenda was not just to conquer the land, but to dominate the minds. That's what we have to understand. It wasn't just about conquest of a land and of a people, but it was of the minds of the people of that land. The missionaries often accompanied the colonizers, bringing with them the message that African traditions were evil and that the salvation could only come through Christianity. So those who have the Christian superior complex that you can only connect to the divine through the modality of the religion of Christianity, you have that thought process because the European colonizers gave that understanding to us when they conquered our land, our people, and our minds. Now, this concept caused deep cultural and spiritual disconnection. And so that's why we have to do the work to reconnect, because these traumatic situations around Christianity and its dogma and indoctrination has caused deep cultural and spiritual disconnection. So it's upon us, our duty, to dismantle it, because it is a dysfunctional system. So indigenous rituals, ancestral veneration, and African cosmologies were all labeled as, you guessed it, witchcraft. The African worldview, which was holistic in nature and community-based, was replaced with an individualistic, fear-based doctrine focused on sin and eternal damnation. For some of our ancestors, the melanated brothers and sisters in the diaspora, it was magnified. The prisoners of war who became enslaved Africans were forbidden from practicing their spiritual traditions that kept their communities and their people and nations together. Christianity was used as a tool of control, with passages from the Bible, the good book, manipulated to justify slavery. Fear became a central theme. Fear of God, fear of your ancestors, fear of oneself. Let that sink in. Now this disconnection has the lingering effects, and that's what we have to understand. A lingering effect, so much so that many of us were taught to see our heritage as something to be ashamed of. And yet today we struggle with feelings of unworthiness rooted in doctrines of sin and punishment. And also we have internalized these beliefs and doctrines. This belief that African spiritual systems are inferior, demonic, or even dangerous. But here's the truth. We are not disconnected from the divine. They have taught us that through enslaving our mind. But as we decolonize, deconstruct, rewire our brain, really wash our brain clean and pure from enslavement, we will begin to see that we are not disconnected from the divine. It has been lying dormant within us all along, that the divine is within us. And our healing begins when we start to remember this. So I want you to take a moment and reflect. If you've been a part of the Christian religion or Christianity in all of its many various forms, I want you to think, how has Christianity shaped your understanding of yourself and your spirituality? And if you wasn't raised or had any contact with Christianity, think about whatever faith tradition that is not indigenous to Africa that you have bought into. How has it shaped your understanding of yourself and your spirituality and even your worldview? And if any emotions come up, I want you to honor them. They are a part of your healing journey. So let's now move into the work of deconstructing the myths and reclaiming the truth. One of the most damaging myths is that Christianity is the only one true religion. Isn't that funny that every religion claims to be the one, especially Western, the one true religion? Many of our people, when they left Christianity, they joined Islam and said, this is the one true religion for the black man. Then you have those that join the Hebrew group and say, this is the one true religion of the black individuals. All claiming the same thing. But especially for those of us in the diaspora, this damaging myth that Christianity is the one and only true religion. This narrative was weaponized to erase indigenous beliefs that come from our culture, that's weaved into the fabric of our nature. But the truth that we have to understand is that African spiritual systems predate Christianity. Let me say that again. What we have to understand is this truth, that African spiritual systems predate Christianity by thousands of years. So I want you to think about this. If African spiritual systems predate Christianity by thousands of years, was the Creator, what some refer to as God, was silent thousands of years before Christianity came along? Think about it. African spiritual system also, might I add, predate the Hebrew faith, aka what is now known as Judaism, by thousands of years. So think about it. Was the divine not communicating with creation and his people of the earth before the Hebrew faith, before Christianity or Islam? Let us think. Let us use our critical thinking skills. In fact, the first known spiritual teachings in human history originated in Africa. So let's take the Kemetic teachings, for example. Ancient Kemet, what is now known as Egypt, gave the world profound spiritual wisdom. The concept of Ma'at, which I love talking about, balance, truth, and cosmic order. It teaches us that living in harmony with the universe is the foundation of spirituality. You can't be spiritual when you are disconnected and you're not living in harmony with the universe and creation. This is not unlike the moral codes taught in Christianity, but is rooted in an African worldview that celebrates life, community, and divine connection, not human sacrifice, blood, and death. Because that is the difference between African worldview and spirituality and Western religion. A Eurocentric view of faith and tradition. African spirituality focuses on community, being connected to the cosmos, with nature, with the divine. And Eurocentric religions, Western religions, focus on human sacrifice, blood, and death. That's the difference. One is about life, one is about death. Now let's turn to the Bantu philosophy from Central and Southern Africa. The concept of Ubuntu, I am because you are, emphasizes interconnectedness. This philosophy reminds us that spirituality is not just about the self. It's not about every man for himself, God for us all. It's not about everybody got to see God for himself. No, Ubuntu, this philosophy is about interconnectedness. We are a community. If there's going to be any salvation, it's collective. It's going to take the part of everybody to put their brick on the wall, to do their part to cause liberation. So this philosophy from the Bantu people, it reminds us that, again, spirituality is not about just oneself, but about our relationship with others, with nature, and with the divine. Ubuntu teaches compassion and collective healing. See, not only do we need to heal ourselves inwardly, but once we do that, we have to do our part to help heal our community, our people, our nation, to bring about a collective healing. Principles that align with the universal truth of oneness, not separatism, but oneness. And finally, we must acknowledge the Yoruba spirituality. The Orisha tradition offers a profound understanding of divine energy expressed through nature. Each Orisha represents a force of nature and a divine archetype, showing us that the Creator is not separate from creation, but present in all things. The Creator is in the wind, in the water, in the elements, air, fire, water, in the trees, in the rustling of the leaves. The divine is within everyone you see. You're looking at the Creator. These spiritual traditions and systems were never inferior or evil or demonic. I'm going to say that again. These African spiritual systems and traditions of spirituality were never and is not inferior or evil or demonic. That is something that was taught to us by our colonizers to keep you disconnected from the power that will liberate you and I. These spiritual systems, they were and are sacred pathways to understanding the Creator and ourselves. And reclaiming them is not about just rejecting Christianity, but it's about reclaiming what was taken from us, because it's rightfully ours. It is our heritage, and integrating it into our spiritual lives today. So take a moment and think about this. What African spiritual practices resonate with you? And how might reclaiming them help you to reconnect to the divine within? Marinate on that. Think about that. And if you'd like to share your thoughts in the comment section, we'd love to hear from you. Now, healing from PTCS, post-traumatic Christian syndrome, requires more than intellectual understanding. It requires spiritual practice. In order to heal and overcome from post-traumatic Christian syndrome, we must have spiritual practice. It's something you have to do over and over again so that it may become ingrained in you. So let us explore how to begin this healing journey. And if you're already on this healing journey, what it might reinforce what you know or help assist you further in your journey. First, we must decolonize the mind. That's the first thing we got to do. Before we do anything, we must decolonize our mind and truly decolonize our mind, detoxing ourselves from the indoctrination. It may take more time some than others, depending on how long you've been indoctrinated. So we must decolonize our mind. What do you mean, Chief, when you say decolonize our mind? This means identifying and challenging fear-based beliefs that no longer serves us. For example, many of us were taught to fear our ancestors. Using various passages of the Bible, the dead knoweth nothing, but the living know that they must die. Yet in another passage of scripture it says, we have so great a cloud of witnesses, meaning ancestors, people that are your loved ones that have gone on before you. Make it make sense. So we were taught to fear our ancestors. But in African spirituality, what's indigenous to our people and our spiritual systems? Ancestors are guides who protect and support us. Reconnecting with them can be a powerful step in our healing journey and process. Second, we must embrace practices that honor our heritage. So many of us, after being indoctrinated, we practice everything and celebrate everything that is non-African, but when it comes to celebrating something about us, we don't want to do it. We celebrate Christmas, a European Western idea that's not indigenous to Africa. We celebrate Hanukkah, something that's not indigenous to Africa. We celebrate Easter, something that's not indigenous to Africa. We celebrate Palm Sunday. We celebrate all of these things, New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, which is not a new year anyway. Because the calendar is that calendar that called the Gregorian calendar is a bastardized calendar. January 1st, nothing is new. We all know that, but it's nothing to beat nobody over the head with. We're just trying to waken us up to knowledge, because knowledge is key. And the right application of knowledge is power. So we celebrate everything. But when it comes to celebrating something that is African, which celebrates our heritage, we don't want to do it. Kwanzaa is something that was created by the African American. It's for us to celebrate our people and our heritage in the diaspora. Many people, we don't want to celebrate that. We want to celebrate the holidays of our ancestors. Halloween included, all of them. Now, I'm not saying that someone should stop celebrating any particular holiday. But what I am saying is that we as a people, as a collective, need to begin to celebrate and honor our heritage. Let's use an example. Meditation, which many people think come from the East, as it relates to India, Chinese, and Buddhist, and Hindu, and all of that. But meditation comes from a central practice in Kemetic teachings from Kemet, aka Egypt. Meditation, which is central and eccentric. It is very important to Kemetic teachings. Meditation allows us to still the mind and connect with the divine. So let's try it for a moment. I want you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath. Come on, take one more with me. Let it out. Exhale. And I want you to visualize yourself standing in the presence of your ancestors, your loved ones that have passed, your mother, your father, your grandmother, grandfather, great-grandparents on both sides, your aunts, great-aunts, uncles, great-uncles, all the way down your generational line, standing before you. And I want you just to feel their love, their strength, their wisdom flowing into you. And as you meditate in that space, you become and begin to embrace your empowerment. So anytime you feel depleted of energy and strength, come back to this video and begin to practice this meditation. Closing your eyes, taking deep breaths, and inhale and exhale, and visualize yourself standing before in the presence of your ancestors and feel their love, their strength, their wisdom, their knowledge flowing to you and into you. Because the blood in your vein, you got it from your ancestors, your mother, your father. And they got theirs from their mother and father. And their mother and father got it from their mother and father. So you are tied and connected to your ancestors. So it's foolish to say that you don't have nothing to do with your ancestors. You're not going to respect and honor your ancestors. You're not going to venerate your ancestors. In African spirituality, we don't have no concept for ancestor worship. We don't worship our ancestors. We honor them. We venerate them. We pay respect to them. Why? Because they are the ones who is responsible. They are our creators, the one responsible for bringing us into this world, into this earth realm. So we must honor them. Well, isn't that in the Bible? Honor your mother and your father, that your days may be long upon the land, which the Lord thy God giveth thee. Well, isn't that there? Honoring your mother and father is just not about those that are still among the land of the living, as the old folks would say, our elders would say in yesteryears. But honoring your mother and father is all about all of your ancestors, those that have come before you, honoring and respecting their memory, their sacrifice, their toils, their hard work to bring you and I where we are today. How can we forget? Thurgood Marshall. How can we forget? Harriet Tubman. How can we forget Dr. Martin Luther King? How can we forget the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? How can we forget the Honorable Prophet Noble Drew Ali? How can we forget Chief Rabbi Whitworth Daniels, How can we forget the great mother and Rabbi Elizabeth Louise Daly? How can we forget Rosa Parks? How can we forget all of the many people that have sacrificed? All of those that did great things, but their names were unmentioned. How can we forget Big Mama, who was a traditional healer, who used to heal in the community with herbs, their knowledge of herbs and things. Before pharmaceutical drugs came along, those old midwives and mothers in the community that knew how to use natural herbs and remedies and nature to bring about healing for our communities. How can we forget them and their sacrifice and their work? We cannot forget those who have labored to bring us where we are today. And the third thing we have to do in implementing this spiritual practice and healing from PTCS, post-traumatic Christian syndrome, we have to, the third thing, practice rituals that restore balance. Now let me park right there right quick. Rituals. A lot of people, especially that have been in the Christian cult, religion, the colonizer's tool to enslave our mind. Most of us who have been in any contact with it, it taints you and it tampers with your sense of reason. That's a proven fact, whether we acknowledge it or not. But a lot of times when we hear the word ritual, the first thing comes to our mind is that indoctrination. Oh, rituals, that's evil, that's demonic. However, we learned in the Christian religion about rituals. Taking the quote-unquote Lord's Supper, Holy Communion, or the Holy Eucharist. Taking the body and blood of the Lord, of Jesus. That is a ritual. Baptism, immersion is a ritual. Christening babies is a ritual. Being anointed with oil and prayed over is a ritual. Exorcism, a ritual. All of these things. See, it's a ritual. What they've done is called the ordinance of the church. But it is a ritual. Now, I know that's going to make so many people upset, but I always deal with definitions. I used to read dictionaries growing up. So let's deal with the word rituals. What does that word mean? The word ritual is a religious or solemn ceremony consisting of a series of actions performed according to a prescribed order. It is the prescribed order of performing a ceremony, especially one characteristic of a particular religion or church. You have religious law or ritual purity done in accordance with a social system. Ritual is a set of actions or words performed in a regular way, often as a part of religious ceremony. A ritual is also done as, or rather, a ritual is also any act done regularly, usually without even thinking. It deals with tradition. So let's rethink about this. We were told rituals. When we hear about the word ritual, we think about evil and darkness. But the things that we do or learned from our colonizers in the religion that they gave us, Christianity, there is rituals. Even in Judaism, the Hebrew faith, there's rituals. Rituals of hand washing. Once you come back from a burial ground, you go purify your hands. You wash your hands before you enter the house. Before you say blessings, you wash your hands with a cup or pitcher of water. 3 on each side. Rituals. Going to the mikveh, a pool rather of natural rainwater. A ritual. Taking a bath and cleansing yourself. Spiritual ritual, religious cleansing. A ritual. All of these things, even in Islam, there are rituals. Before you go to pray in the mosque and even in your home, you do washing to cleanse yourself. Even if you took a shower this morning, you do rituals of washing yourself, purifying certain parts before you pray. Then you get your holy mat and rug out, lay it out, face the east, and then pray. Rituals. Certain things you do when your loved one passes away. Rituals. So let us not be spooked by words. Let us have an understanding of what words mean and how it relates to us. So we must practice rituals that restore balance in us as a people. In the Bantu tradition, this might involve communal ceremonies that celebrate life and healing. In the Yoruba tradition, it could mean making offerings to the Orisha or creating an altar to honor the divine forces in nature. Give, for instance, those of us that were raised in the Gullah Geechee Islands, the Low Country, Sea Coast, especially those that were raised in Beaufort County, Charleston, Jasper County, and surrounding areas, especially on the St. Helena Island. We have the Heritage Festival. We have black people, melanated people, people of African descent that come from all over the world there. And when I was growing up there, they would come from all surrounding counties and all over the world to celebrate parades, ceremonial dances, dressing in indigenous ways, selling things from the farm. It's like almost like a harvest season. I believe it would be in November. Then in Beaufort we have the Gullah Festival. Then they have another on Hilton Head. They have another festival, a Gullah festival. Even in the sea islands of Georgia, they have festivals. Celebrating our heritage. Celebrating where we come from. This is doing things that help restore balance within us. It helps give us a sense of dignity and honor and respect for ourselves and where we come from. Helping us to center ourselves knowing that we're not just nobodies. That our history did not begin in chattel enslavement here in the West, in Diaspora. But our records of the past go way beyond that. Where we were rulers of our own lands, our own people, living free to practice our faith, our traditions, our culture. Finally, we must affirm the truth of who we are. Stop claiming to be everything other than who you are. The sad thing we have to face as melanated people, that oftentimes in an effort to disassociate ourselves with the colonizer, we then begin, and also Christianity, all one and the same, we begin to attach ourselves, instead of to our culture, we attach ourselves to other religions. We move to Islam, we move to the Hebrew faith, Judaism, we move to all other things. We claim to be everything else but African. We'll claim all kind of other names for ourselves other than Africans. We'll call ourselves Native Americans. We'll call ourselves Indians. We'll call ourselves any and everything. Hebrews, except Africans. Let's think about it. Every melanated person all across the globe are connected. Our phenotype, we're connected. That is not to say that when Christopher Columbus came to America by accident, that he didn't already find us here. Just because we're Africans don't mean that we weren't already here. Because we were already on every place, every continent, every landmass. We were already there. We moved from the cradle of the motherland outwards, spreading all over the world. So we have to begin to affirm the truth to ourselves and stop claiming everything else but our own heritage. There's nothing wrong with our heritage, so stop trying to claim everybody else's and claim your own. Why? Because everybody else is claiming your heritage while you refuse to claim it. The knowledge that the Greeks had, and so many melanated people, for so many various reasons, I'm not knocking it, are all a part of Greek organizations. Not knowing that the Greeks learned their philosophy, learned their understanding of cosmology and all of the rest from Africa. Everybody else is claiming to be you except you. Everybody is claiming your truth except you. So how about we turn the tables and begin to claim our own truth? Stop letting other people define us and define our own self by truth. To move out of ignorance into our own self-awareness, into our own power, where nobody can tell us who we are because we have self-preservation, self-determination. No one can walk in and confuse us with their lies. That's what you really decolonize your mind. So I want you to repeat after me. This affirmation. Say, I honor the wisdom of my ancestors. I release fear and embrace the truth of who I am. I reclaim my divine heritage with strength, love, and power. Amen and Ashe. Now this is the beginning of liberation. This is how we heal the African soul from the atrocities of post-traumatic Christian syndrome. In closing, I want to thank you for joining with me today, taking the time to listen to me talk and share my wisdom and understanding with you. Post-traumatic Christian syndrome is real. We hear of Stockholm syndrome. We hear of post-traumatic stress syndrome. We hear about post-slavery syndrome, all kinds of things. But post-traumatic Christian syndrome is real, that many of us face. But so is our power to heal ourselves. Physician, heal thyself. We've taken care of other nations and other ethnic groups, healed their wounds, raised their babies, protected them, stood by them, fought in their wars that had nothing to do with us, and then come back to this nation of America and then treated as second-class citizens. That's what our ancestors dealt with. So now it's time to move inwardly and heal our own self as a collective. Nurse our own self back to health. And we do that by understanding the impact of PTCS, deconstructing harmful myths and lies about us and our heritage, our culture, and our practices, knowing that it's not inferior, evil, or demonic. It's not what you call, quote unquote, witchcraft. That is, the European didn't understand our way of life and culture. So the thing that he could not understand by trying to assimilate it with things that was in his culture, he labeled evil, witchcraft, demonic. So what we have to do to undo that way of thinking, deconstruct that lie about our culture and way of life, and begin to embrace, with embracing African spiritual wisdom, we can reclaim our divine connection and live in harmony with the cosmos, with nature, with the universe, with ourselves, and live in harmony with our true authentic selves. Living a life of peace and contentment in our truth. I want you to remember, you are not alone on this path. Sometimes deconstructing and decolonizing ourselves from harmful theologies and ideologies and philosophies and indoctrination can feel like a lonely road, and you're all in it by yourself because your family don't understand why you don't walk away from the church. They don't understand why you don't believe in the Bible like they do. They don't understand why you don't pray like they do. They don't understand why you are maybe using crystals, have an altar in your home. They don't understand why you don't celebrate the same holidays that they do. So they're at a loss, so you begin to almost feel alienated. Because they don't understand, nor do they want to understand. They just want to bring you back into the fold. Rock you back to sleep. Lull to sleep by the lullaby of Christianity. But I want you to know that you're not alone on this journey, on this path. There are many of us that are waking up and are rising to the challenge to free our minds from indoctrination and colonization. Your ancestors, I want you to know this, walk with you. A lot of people say, well, I'm still practicing the Christian faith because my grandparents and everything. Many of them didn't have the courage to walk away. They didn't have the strength after struggling with the systems that were in place, made and created against them. They didn't have the strength. They were on survival mode, trying to make it from day to day to live. They didn't have the strength to begin to deal with the indoctrination. So they did what all they knew how to do. But I want you to know your ancestors walk with you. They support you. And the divine is within you always. I want you to know that. See, going back to religion, once you already started deconstructing, that pull to go back in is normal. You know why? Because a lot of time when things are rough, we tend to go back to what's familiar. Even if we know it's a lie, even if we know it's not beneficial to us, even if we know that it is a tool of our oppression, we will go back to it. Why? Because it's familiar, it's comfortable. Same thing with some of our ancestors. Once emancipation came along in the USA, they were told they were free, they could leave the plantation, go wherever they want to go. But guess what? Well, it wasn't an infrastructure for them. Where were they to go? How were they going to provide for themselves? Where were they going to get clothes from? Now, many people say, well, we're going to figure it out. Bye. But there was some that said, this is what familiar. You feed us, clothe us, give us a place to stay, we'll stay on the plantation and work. So I want you to remember that when you get that tug and people trying to pull you back into religion, the comfort zone, the place where that familiar. And remember, your ancestors are with you. The divine is with you. And to stay the course and freeing yourself. Because once you free yourself, you can free the generation coming behind you. That your children do not have to bear the same scars that we did, all in the name of religion. In the name of a God that's foreign to the African people. So I want us to move forward together. We can't leave nobody behind. Move forward together in truth, love, and liberation. And I thank you, beloveds, for being with me and supporting this podcast. If this message and this podcast and platform is speaking to your heart, I want you to do me a favor. To click like, to share it, Repost it. Send it to everybody you know. Family, friends, co-workers, everyone. Share it to the group chats, to group pages, to your page, everywhere. Share it. Do us a favor. You may say, well, Chief, I can't financially support right now. But you can do other things. You can hit that like button. Follow us. Share the content. Comment. Repost. And those of you who can do all of that and donate, we appreciate it. If you'd like to donate and help us get the equipment that we can continue to perfect our podcast, we appreciate you so very much. Those that would like to give, the information is in my bio, the link in my bio. It is also posted here, but I'll give it to you. It should be above my head. It is $ capital VSY, lowercase ISRAEL 2021. Again, that is Cash App, $ capital VSY, lowercase ISRAEL 2021. And we appreciate your donations and all that you do to help us continue to disseminate and spread this message of truth, light, and liberation. And this has been the Sankofa Sessions Podcast with your host, Chief Apostle Veronica Yisrael, High Priestess and Spiritual Leader of the Soul Awakening Sanctuary, where our aim is simple. It is to expand the consciousness of the masses through teaching universal laws and principles of truth, not tied to any specific religion, doctrine, or dogma. We are here to bring about healing to the African soul through Africa and the diaspora, with truth and liberating thoughts to free our minds and our souls, that we can rise up and take our place, and really take our place among the nations of the world as a strong collective people. And so until next time, remember that you are divine, you are powerful, and you are a manifestation of the creative force, the infinite intelligence itself. And never let any theology, any ideology, any philosophy, or anyone's negative opinions tell you otherwise. I love you all. The Spirit of the Divine in me loves the Spirit of the Divine in you. I love you all. Peace be with you.